This is our first of the regular season. We put in the hard work during the preseason. What we want to do now is to take actual clips from games around the state that we can learn from, both good stuff and things that we can do better. And for everyone's betterment, to apply them beginning next week. This first clip, what you're going to see here, first of all, look at our time score situation. It's early in the game. It's fourth down. And we have our back judge that probably is a little shy here. He's working at about 20 yards. Now, I've encouraged you to, in 5-person, start somewhere in the vicinity of 25. You just need that depth, which the deeper you are, the wider you're going to be able to see. You're going to see things out of your peripheral coming your way that if you're too close, it's going to be up on you too quickly. So we're a little tight here. And what we're going to get is we're going to get a quick kick out of this formation, and we're in scramble mode. So go ahead and run it, Gregor. Now, it didn't come on quickly enough, but the quarterback started in the natural pistol position and then took a couple of steps back. As soon as you see that person in that position, you got to assume there, you just saw at the very end, that's your clue, that's your key. And you got to make sure at that point that all of a sudden you're thinking, all right, this is probably going to be a quick kick. So it's time to back up a little bit and then be prepared to open that hip and get deep. And in this particular case, this kick gets over our head. And we can't let that happen. We've got to be better with our pre-snap and our anticipatory responsibilities out there so that we get this play covered. Now, fortunately, it runs dry at the 5-yard line. It didn't challenge the goal line. We're not always going to be that fortunate. So we've got to be alert. Whether you're in 5 or 7, we've got to be thinking right along with the teams in terms of what might be happening. Okay, next clip should be 43. All right, now what I want you to look at here, even though this is a deep wing session, we have other positions on the call. Now, we talk about legality of formation. We talk about advantage, disadvantage. Look where this right tackle is. Look at the play that's run. What we need to do from the standpoint of equity is that we've got to get and keep our linemen up on the line of scrimmage. They are going to meet the minimum expectation that we hold for them. In this particular case, he knows very well on this play that he's going to need to clear the guard, maybe even the snapper, to get out in front of this play. And if you look at his helmet is not even breaking the rear end or the rear point of the snapper's rear end. So he's an illegal formation. Now, if we can get to this early in the game, I would say do so. I would put the tackle, I would put the quarterback, and most importantly, I would put the head coach on notice. He's not up far enough. And we know why. Well, you don't want to say you know why, but we know why. And let them know that this is the warning. They'll get their rear ends up there, but then for the rest of the game, we got to hold them accountable for being where they belong. Okay, and we need to make sure that we share the warning to the other side of the field, because later we're going to shift to going the opposite direction. And now that right tackle is going to be on the opposite wing person side of the field. So we got to share that information. All right, the next one is 44. We're going to have a run that's going to go to the top of the screen. Pretty standard stuff. But go ahead, let it run, Gregor. It's going to break this. Now, watch the guy coming from the side. If all of our eyes are on this dead ball spot, we're going to see a guy go down, and we're going to have one of those aw shucks moments where we go, how'd he get there? And we're going to be kind of looking around like, did anybody see that? Again, 5 or 7, we can't let that happen. This is not only a safety foul, it's also a conduct foul. And to keep control of the game, we need to make sure that we foul action like this. This is a cheap shot. It does not play well. People tend to get pretty PO'd about it. And there will be ramifications for that later on if they don't feel like justice has been served. So this was a 5-person game. So back judge, we don't need you looking at this ball outside of the hash mark. We've got a very competent line of scrimmage person that's going to make that call in terms of forward progress. We need to have you looking at point of attack first from a blocking standpoint, but then we need to have you looking back into the field so that we don't miss this kind of action. That's a foul. That's a foul in the first quarter. It's a foul on the last snap of the game. Get those. Okay, next clip should be 60. If I can read my own writing here. All right, this is 52. What we're going to get is a mid-range kick. And again, whether we're talking 5 or 7, we need to understand, and we'll talk it from a 5-person perspective. This is a relatively short kick. So if we don't read the kick off of the foot correctly and we pursue too far downfield, we lose all of our blocking angles. So in this particular case, I would say best case, deep wings, you would move maybe 5 yards downfield. And I would say pause just to see how things are going to develop in terms of your blocking angles, maybe not even move off your restraining line. But if you look at it one more time, let's say you come all the way down to the 40-yard line. What are you going to be able to see from the 40-yard line? Not much. We've got to be able to have slots to look through those things so that we can see potential problems occurring. Not that we're going to anticipate the call, but we're going to anticipate the situation so that if we do get a block in the back, or we do get a clip, or we do get whatever happens, that we're alert to the fact and that we get a good, clean look at it. Okay, next clip should be 65. You know, this is one of those things that we have talked about quite a bit during the, go ahead and run it, Gregor. Back judges, I'm not going to say you should never get involved with forward progress on a play from scrimmage. I would just say, let's wait for the umpire to get down there. See, we come up and we take that. There are 2 problems with that. First of all, we're assuming that this guy is going to get tackled there. And if he breaks that tackle, we got no shot getting to the goal line. The other thing, though, is that if team A comes up and wants to go quick, now all of a sudden the back judge has got to go from the hash mark and get 20 to 25 yards downfield and turned around. What kind of pre-snap routine are you going to be able to perform when you're in that sort of a scramble mode? Let the umpire come up and do his job and spot the ball to hash. If you want to be an umpire, then find somebody on the crew that will switch with you so you can go in and be an umpire, or find a crew that needs an umpire. But we need to have you perform the mechanics of your assigned position, which in this case is back judge, and we need your keister out of there prepared to officiate the next play. All right. This is going to be a Hail Mary right at the end of the half. What is the one and only, I shouldn't say one and only, what's the most important line in a situation like this? The answer is the goal line. Now, I suppose it's possible the ball could get tipped around, particularly if we're near midfield and we might need to get back to the end line to defend the end line. But here, the goal line or the end line is not going to really be in play. We don't get enough depth here. We've got to anticipate into the half. This is what's likely to occur. If something happens short of that, we can always move up. Distance is our friend. We can referee from an additional 10 yards of a cushion. That's not a problem for us. But where we get into trouble is when we let plays get up almost even with this, like what we had here. That should be another, I'd say conservatively 10 yards deeper than we get the back judge on this particular play. Whether we underestimate the strength of the quarterback's arm, who knows? But get back there and defend that goal line. All right, next clip is number 80. This also involves back judge mechanics. And by the way, what I just talked about with Hail Mary applies equally to 7 or 5. All right, now we end up coming up. Now, we've talked about the fact, back judges, that you have 3 options for your starting position. One is goal line. Secondly is midway in the end zone. And then obviously the third position is the end line. You need to make a determination based on all factors that present themselves: down, distance, game situation. Does the team run the ball a lot? Do they throw the ball a lot? All sorts of things have to go into making that determination where to start. Here, this becomes a running play pretty quickly. So if you're going to start midway in the end zone, when you see it's a running play, why don't you move up to the goal line? We're sort of betwixt and between here. So once you make that determination, then the expectation would be that you would step up. Now, in 7-person mechanics, you're going to be far less likely to move up to the goal line because you have deep wings. Occasionally, yeah, I suppose if we're snapping, say, somewhere around the 30 or inside the 30, maybe the 27, maybe you're starting someplace where it might be applicable for you to move up. But the point is, here we're in a running mode, but yet we don't react with a running reaction. Okay. All right, next clip. This is going to be a muddle huddle situation. And if you remember, one of the last things that we talked about last week was somebody's going to get caught because they haven't thought about muddle huddle, whether it be the defense that hasn't prepared for it or hopefully not the crew. Here, we get surprised. And what we end up with is an illegal shift. If you go back one more time, Gregor, what you're going to notice is that the motion man clearly starts in motion, and we've still got linemen that aren't even close to being down. Now, when we have something unique like a muddle huddle, they have to be perfect. The offense has to perform its functions perfectly to pull this off. If they don't, we need to flag it. There'll be no discretion when somebody does something goofy, whether it's an onside kick, a quick kick, or whatever it turns out to be. If they're doing something outside of the scope of normal football, they've got to be perfect. And here we should have had an illegal shift called by one or both of our short wings and bring this back. We score a 2-point conversion on a fouling play. Now, the other part of this is, all right, let's say they were illegal. We've got to be prepared to deal with this. Once again, remember, when we're in a muddle huddle situation, we're treating that as a 2-point attempt. We didn't have a kicker and a holder in position to be able to perform a standard PAT. So therefore, we're going to treat this as a 2-point attempt, meaning our deep judges are going to be back at the back intersection of the white, and our back judge is going to be pretty much where he is in this particular play. The umpire, his or her first responsibility is the snap and the snapper. So, okay, you might shade towards the muddle, but understand that your first responsibility is to make sure that that snap goes off cleanly and that we don't have a foul against the snapper. For the people up with the muddle, in this case at the top of the screen, it needs to be understood that the short wing has greater responsibility for interior linemen, and so does the deep wing at the top of the screen for what's going on there. We may have to stretch beyond what is typically our coverage if we get linemen out there that obviously pancake somebody, perform a takedown, what have you. We may need to help the umpire, but we have to be thinking about the muddle huddle. We need to talk about it. They're not going to tell us that they're going to run it. If I was a coach, I wouldn't alert the crew to the fact that I was going to run potentially a muddle huddle, because I want the standard to be as low as possible for my team. And I don't want to run the risk that inadvertently somebody talks about it and the other team hears about it and has a chance to prepare. You get the idea. We have to be ready for this. All right, 124 is another muddle huddle from the same game. All right, we've got a similar set of circumstances here. And the reason why I put it in here is to illustrate the kinds of plays that are possible coming out of a muddle huddle. Now, this is going to be, this is a direct snap. Now, okay, our rules experts, please confirm that the snap does not have to be between the snapper's legs. It just needs to be backward. Unless somebody jumps on and says, nope, that's wrong, that's what we're going with. But here, the snap goes directly to the running back that's behind the muddle, and they've got the offense overpowered, and they pretty easily put this guy into the end zone. That's the type of play we've got to be prepared to defend. So once again, if we're in 7, we our deep wing at, which is not on the screen, to the left side of the screen, needs to be alert to what's going on there, and in terms of blocking and other factors that may take place. And obviously the short wing has to as well. Now, from this formation, we've got a one-on-one at the top of the screen or to the right of the screen that could develop there. So there are a number of things that can be run out of that formation. And trust me, the teams that are running the muddle, they're starting the year with a certain number of plays. And if they don't get the matchup that they want or expect, they're going to shift and they're going to go for 1 point. But if they see something that, like in this case, they've got them overpowered man-wise with the muddle, they're going to go ahead and run that piece out of their arsenal. As the year goes on, they're probably going to add additional things in. So we've got to be prepared. But again, I can't emphasize enough from a crew perspective that when a team runs this sort of action, they have to be perfect in terms of their lineup, in terms of every aspect of legality of football. All right, next clip. This is going to be a forward-backward pass situation, and we're going to get a holding foul out here at the corner. Now, the interesting thing is the flag comes from the referee. Now, this is a 5-person game, but even in a 5-person game, I would say this is a big stretch for that referee to go that far out, because the referee initially has a responsibility for forward backwards with the wing at the top of the screen, in addition to making sure that the quarterback is properly protected before he or she can move into another function on a particular play. I really have a hard time believing that the referee was able to see this block beginning to end. So let's talk about this from, first of all, a 5-person perspective. Now, your line of scrimmage person obviously has responsibilities for forward backwards. They have responsibility to make sure that the catch is secured, that if the ball comes out of there, that we have a fumble instead of a backward pass if it's a forward pass. So that person is going to be pretty well occupied. The only shot really that we have of getting a foul at the corner, if there is one, is our back judge has to transition. Now, in this particular case, he ought to be looking there because this was trips to the top of the screen. So the key should be for the back judge to the top of the screen. How we miss this, I'm not sure. It certainly looks suspect at very, very best. Looks like a hook and turn, if not a grab and restrict. We get the flag properly. We just don't get it from the right person. So talk about this. Now, from a 7-person mechanic standpoint, you would have 2 people looking at this block, because the deep wing at the top of the screen is not going to have an active engagement on that wide guy immediately because of the timing of the pass. So you're not going to lose that key, but you're going to check down to the inside and get a look at that play. And in 7, I would expect that we would get a flag down from either the back judge or even potentially the deep wing at the goal line. All right, next clip should be 146. All right, now back judge mechanics. Look at where we are on the field. All right, now, first of all, if this is a 7-person game, which most of our people on this call are working 7, when you see that this is clearly going to get into the end zone, you need to move back towards the end line. Because you got to remember, you've got your deep wings that should be on the goal line that are going to handle the goal line. We have to defend the end line from the standpoint of the pass being batted or muffed and have an active play on the end line. So if it's 7, you got to get back. You got to make the end line your best friend and then work back from there. In this particular case, we're starting at a deeper, well, let's see, we're snapping from the 33. Yeah, I'm good with that cushion on the part of the back judge here, both in 5 or 7. The difference would be if we clearly are going to have a pass that's going to get into the end zone, then obviously you want to be back. But here, the back judge has sort of a betwixt in between responsibility. The goal line isn't specifically threatened, but he still has to give depth to be able to judge the catch. So pretty good job by the back judge, actually, on a intercepted pass change of possession. The thing that I would say to you is to finish this play after you have firm control and confirmed in your own mind that you have an intercepted pass rather than a catch for touchdown, is stop your clock and then give a point with the new direction going the other way. All right, last clip in this package is 147. Now, this is going to be clearly a read and react situation. I know it was warm Friday night and especially Thursday night, but we've got to think from a deep perspective. We've got to stick with action beginning to end. And here we let our feet get set in concrete and we try to backpedal, and it just does not work out well. And, the guy doesn't go all the way down and score, but we just don't handle this play correctly, because either we assume that runner is going to get tackled, which is a horrible judgment for us to make. Never assume that someone is going to be tackled or driven out of bounds until they are. Okay, now we can make decisions about how quickly to check up. But here we let this runner get beyond us. And could he have gotten all the way back to the goal line? I don't know. But we took ourselves out of this play because we didn't properly read or react. So let's go back one more time, Gregor. And I'm going to point out what I think is the mesh point for the back judge. Right about, okay, let it go. When this runner gets right here, boom, you got to get onto your horse. You got to open that hip and say, okay, this may be a foot race to the goal line. Backpedaling is not going to get it. And I don't know whether we just assumed that this wasn't going to go very far, whether we were tired. I'm not sure what, but we got to be better prepared and be thinking through those things. All right, now this is a great crew discussion play, and this, if you haven't already talked about this as a crew, this would be something good to talk about either before your JV or your freshman game or your varsity game, certainly for Friday night. All right, now again, we're gonna take this from the standpoint of this being a 7-person crew. This was a 5-person game. Now, I'll just give you a heads up. What we're going to get is we're going to get a block kick, and the ball is going to move towards the line of scrimmage. Now, the line of scrimmage guy at the bottom of the screen does a really, really nice job holding the line. The line of scrimmage person at the top releases, and that's probably the 5-person mechanic. He has his back to, or the referee has his back to him, so that's probably the 5-person mechanic. He hustles back, but what I liked here is that our short wing stayed home until we had firm control and a determination of where this ball was touched. Now, in 7-person, both of our line of scrimmage people should be holding the line until that ball crosses the line. Because again, we have help downfield. We have 3 people downfield that are going to handle the majority of what's going to happen down there. So we need to respect that neutral zone until it's no longer a factor. Now, when we have a kick that is blocked, umpires, we need to move up towards the line of scrimmage so that we can aid that line of scrimmage person that may need to make a diamond cutter decision in terms of where this ball is touched. This is really close. So the part of this that really is worthy of discussion, let's take a couple of scenarios here. Let's say that this team B player touches the ball clearly beyond the neutral zone. And by the way, philosophically, if we're going to rule touching beyond the line, it has to be discernible that this ball crosses the line. You know, I wouldn't get in there with divining rods and all sorts of material to try to precisely identify that it was 1 inch beyond the neutral zone. It needs to be clearly beyond if we're going to recognize it as being touched beyond the line, because the team that messed up here is the team that got the kick block. So we don't want to unintentionally mess over the team that made a great play. But clearly, if this ball is touched by team B beyond the line, what is the rule? If they're first to touch a scrimmage kick beyond the line, whoever has possession of the ball at the end of the play has a first down, right? So that neutral zone becomes the line of demarcation. Yes. So we got to make sure that we talk about these plays, and we, as short wings, as umpires, as referees, we need to have, just like we talk about isolation plays for the deep 3, whether it's kick, catch, interference, or things like that downfield. This is one of those defining plays for a short wing. And for the crew, for us to nail this, we need to make sure that we're thinking about it and talking about it. All right, next clip. This is going to be another swinging gate. What clip is that? Oh, that's okay. That was the next view of the same. All right, swinging gate. So do we have a kicker and a holder in position to kick? No. So this is a 2-point attempt, meaning we have our deep wings at the back pylons, back edge of the white, and we're refereeing this as a 2-point attempt all the way. All right, go ahead and run it, Gregor. All right, now a couple of things here. first of all, if this is 7-person, I would agree that the short wing would simply stay at the goal line extended because we would have the deep wing at the back pylon. If this was a play where the deep wing started at the goal line and we had a play that threatened the back third of the end zone, you know that the expectation would be that you would slide down a couple of steps at the back edge of the white and assist the back judge with a ruling on the end line. Here, let me ask you, what is the result of the play? Result of the play is an incomplete pass. What is the signal for an incomplete pass? This is pretty obvious, so 2 at the most is all we really need. But our reaction here is to stop the clock. The referee gets it right. He comes up and immediately says, the 2-point attempt is no good. Now, is that a big deal from a mechanical standpoint? Not in this situation, but we just need to be sharper than that to know that we're signaling the result of the play. Where this is very common for us is where we have an incomplete pass on a play where we have defensive interference. We want to stop the clock for the foul, when actually what we need to do is to stop the clock for the result of the play, which is an incomplete pass. All right, Gregor, skip to 91.
Rich, I don't see 91.
All right, let's go to 109 then.
I got 139.
Oh, I'm sorry. It should be 80. I was in the wrong playlist. Should be number 80.
There we go.
All right, now we're going to have an out of bounds. Go ahead and run it. We're going to have out of bounds to the right, or a pass downfield. Now, notice our quarterback is going to come up to the neutral zone. Now, I know that there are slight differences between the federation rule and the college rule. And if I'm, again, we've got referees on here that can correct me. My understanding is that the difference is that in federation, everything has to be behind the line for it to be legal. In college, a toenail behind the line would make it legal. Gary, Chuck, Nat, any other people, am I right on that? Give me a thumbs up if I'm correct. I don't see a thumbs up, so I don't hear
Yeah,
anybody.
it's good. Yeah.
All right. So the determination that our short wing needs to make is, does everything stay behind the 35? This is really, really close. And again, we want to make sure that if we're going to foul this action, that it's discernible that he is beyond the line. This looks like, to me, that it's something that we're probably going to rule as being legal. Comes up right to the 30, toes right at the line, and he lets her fly. I would just say, once again, especially when we don't have a big line involved, make sure that it's discernible, that he's clearly beyond the line. All right, last one in this package is 139. What we're going to look at here is a couple things. First of all, we're going to have a potential hold in the middle of the screen. 70 in white, if we go back, Gregor. Now, when we talk about quality fouls, we talk about consistency throughout the game. Now, if we have been faithful throughout the game to make sure that our fouls inside for holding are big, they're takedowns, they're obvious, they're going to show up on video, they're material because there's something out of the rule book that makes it illegal, and it takes something away from the opponent, cool, flag it. But here, There were very, very few fouls in this game. In fact, I think they had one holding, and it was a Stevie Wonder holding foul. It was that obvious, right? So we're well within our bounds to pass on that action in the middle of the field. Now, the thing that I want to talk about is philosophically over here on the sideline. What we want to look at, what we want to concentrate on is this tackler. When does that tackler commit to going after this guy? Now, we don't have an end zone view, so I can't tell you discernibly where he commits. This looks like to me that this is close to having contact right at the sideline. We don't want to nitpick that. We want to make sure that if we're going to ring one up for a late hit out of bounds, that he's got 2 feet down in the white. This is close. And obviously, the primary responsibility for making that determination has to be the short wing. Back judge comes over and supports, which is okay because he doesn't have opponents around him more into the field. But the back judge is going to have a hard time making this determination where this contact started. We've got to turn this over to the short wing in 5. Now, in 7, we're going to have 2 opinions over there. And let's say that the deep wing says, hey, this guy's got both feet down in bounds. This is a hit that was avoidable by this guy. Go ahead and ring it up, but have that conversation between the short wing and the deep wing, particularly when you don't have the same thing. If deep wing throws, short wing doesn't, that's got to be an automatic conversation. Because essentially, if I'm the deep wing, I'm saying to the short wing, why didn't you throw on that? Now, he may have a reason. He or she may have a reason. Hey, Rich, I am certain that this guy is committed to making this tackle out of bounds. We're not going to like this on video. Okay. Then we go to Nat, Chuck, or Gary, and we pick up a flag. Now, the other part that I want to talk about here is we get coaches on the sideline. Now, or beyond the sideline, out onto the field. And if you remember, this is something that Mark Ewell has made a point of emphasis the last couple of years, that he wants coaches to stay in the white, particularly when they're protesting. Now, here we get 3 coaches out on the field. Now, it's hard to talk about this without sounding critical, but it's something that we've got to understand. It's our responsibility. If you're the short wing on the Zeeland East sideline, you know you're not actively involved with that play out of bounds on the opposite sideline. And you've got to anticipate and you've got to feel, if not see these people out of the corner of your eye, that they're coming onto the field. You need to have eye contact with these people and you need to get them moving back where they belong. Okay, an immediate, quick, emotional response where they back up to the sideline. All right, fair enough. But when they continue out there, this guy gets gets to the top of the numbers. I assume that's the head coach. He's got 2 other assistants that are out there. And I realize the short wing on this side of the field, the bottom end of the field, is not visible on the camera, but I don't see him moving people back towards the sideline. This is not a good look for football at any level. And I would say, based on where we are and the fact how deep we have people on the field, and that he's still throwing his arm in the air like he wants a flag, I'd give him a flag, but it wouldn't be the one that he wants. But if we can prevent that, first of all, if we've done the responsibility during the pregame where we've talked to the coaches and reminded them about the expectations of the sideline, we found out that there's a get back coach that supposedly is going to help us. We're well on our way to avoiding situations like this. But whether we've done our due diligence or not, when we get people this far out behaving in this way, And there doesn't seem to be any movement whatsoever moving back towards where they belong. We got to follow this. This is just a horrible look for this particular game and our game control.
Hey,
Okay.
Rich,
Yep.
would this be, if this was the first time, would it just be a sideline warning, or would you escalate this all the way up to UNS?
This is way too far for a sideline warning. You know, he's at the top of the numbers, and he's got two other coaches out there.
So you would flag them for unsportsmanlike?
I would flag that. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. They're out of the box. They're on the field. But
I guess the question, I'm sorry, Rich.
Here's the key. Let me finish this thought and then go ahead. If you're the short wing, whether it's 5 or 7, you got to be smart enough to know and feel and hear these people, and you got to leave whatever you thought was your responsibility before. And job one becomes stopping these guys before they get too far out on the field, get them backed up. Tell them you'll get them an answer or whatever you need to say, but get them off of the field. I don't see where we did that here. Now, someone had a comment.
No, I was just going to comment that I think a lot of the guys would say, well, as far as they came out, are we just going to give one, or are we going to bang all 3?
One. We're not going to bang them 3 times. This is you know, you can pick one. Doesn't really matter. It's going to be unsportsmanlike on the bench. Typically, the head coach is responsible for those, correct? So it would be charged to the head coach, but you're only going to get them once. You know, so that's only going to be 1 foul.
Rich, is it possible that the short wing is helping with a cross field spot in case that guy went out of bounds with those kids from other sport or other teams, to where he's thinking maybe that guy wouldn't get the spot? Not that it's an important one because it's going to be a first down, but maybe the white hat could get this for him.
Well, I suppose the white hat could get involved in this, but the person that ultimately is going to control this situation is going to be the short wing. At least initially. I would think referees that, you know, and I don't know where the quarterback went. Is the quarterback, probably the quarterback is number 9 with the towel, looks like a tail sticking out of his pants. Is that the quarterback? This guy right here. Yeah. So number 1, maybe you're still in the area because you're protecting the quarterback. I guess that isn't the quarterback.
It looks
The
like
quarterback
it's a
was the one that
wildcat.
got tackled out of bounds.
I would say this respectfully, that we've just got to have higher expectations for our wing officials, in this particular case, the short wing, that this has to be addressed. And I don't see any evidence that it was, and that's concerning. All right, this is 7-person now. All right, so we're snapping from the 30. We're in really nice position. We're starting at the 5-yard line, back edge of the white. We're going to get a play that's going to develop down the sideline. And it's going to be fairly close to the pylon. So go ahead and run it. So our first responsibility is any blocking action out there. We don't really have any. Now, the thing that I would like us to do, deep wings, we do a nice job getting to the goal line right away, nice and early. We get set, back up to that limit line. Now, in that particular case, the defense was not quick enough to get over to challenge the runner near the pylon. That's not always going to be the case. So back up to the limit line and take this play at the goal line. Now, That means that you have to have pre-snap awareness that you have a clear area back there, no cheerleaders, no photographers, nobody else is back there, so that you have a straight line to be able to back up to the limit line. All right, 76. Similar situation here. We start out at the goal line, good position. Quarterback rolls. We've got action right along the sideline. You can see that the pylon goes down. Right now, we don't really know for sure how the pylon goes down. I'm suspicious that probably it was number 14. Now, what do we do when a receiver steps out of bounds or touches the pylon, which by rule is out of bounds? We got to put our hat down in the white, even if it's late. Okay. Now it looks like we start to take our hat off, finish that thought, put the hat down in the white. Number one, it's a good habit to get into. But number two, the fact that if this ball was first touched by this receiver after going out of bounds and then reestablishing inbounds, that would be a flag that potentially could offset a foul by the defense. So it is important. We can't assume just because he stepped out of bounds that the result of the play is going to be an incomplete pass. We have to referee it independently that it might be a foul that would be important later on. Is it likely? No, probably not. But when it does happen, we got to be prepared by having our mechanics properly executed. All right, number 91. We're going to threaten the back third of the end zone here. Now we start out really, really good position with our deep wing at the top of the screen, quarterback rolls. Now we get a pass into the back third of the end zone. Now it's fairly close to the sideline. You've heard me talk about when the pass is going to the deep third of the end zone that we want to slide down the back edge of the white as a deep wing to assist the back judge on the end line. Here, this is a little different scenario because it's so close to the sideline. What I would suggest that we do in this scenario is simply to hold our position at the back edge of the white, in fact, maybe even the limit line, because we're going to see just as much from the back edge of the white or the limit line as we're going to see by coming up to the goal line or moving down the back edge of the white. You know, it gets really congested down there. You know, you've got a maximum of 10 yards. So distance is our friend. So in this particular instance, the mechanic that I would like to see the deep wings execute would be to stay stationary and let this play finish. Obviously an incomplete pass, but we know that in different circumstances, this might be a diamond cutter back there in terms of inbounds. We end up knocking the pylon out of there. Obviously, that's way out of bounds at this particular point. But you know, we might have a number of things that happen over here. For instance, let's say the defensive player has his foot out of bounds over the end line and touches the ball. What's the status of the ball? It's a dead ball, right? We got a player out of bounds touching the ball. So we could potentially have a receiver that would end up with the ball in bounds, but it would be incomplete because of the action of the defensive player. So we want to make sure that we have proper cushion there to be able to see and consider everything that takes place on a given play. All right, 123. Now, I really like this play. Stop it for just a minute. You know, when we talk about deep three mechanics, when we talk about potential fouls, like particularly DPI, we've got to think of it as a team. Usually it's the deep three, sometimes based on the direction of the pass and the depth of the pattern, the short wings get involved in it. In this particular play, we're going to have action that's going to happen right about at the numbers, and it's going to be right in between our deep wing at the bottom of the screen and our back judge. Now, potentially what we're going to have is an arm bar from behind, which is going to open up to our back judge, which isn't going to be as visible to our deep wing because of the fact you've been coached to keep your cushion to stay ahead of those plays. You're actually going to be looking through players, but it opens up to the back judge. So let's watch this play. One-on-one out here at the bottom of the screen. And he beats him off the line pretty quickly. There's some contact. Now, our deep wing at the bottom of the screen properly is at the goal line. Where this mesh point is happening, we should be at the goal line stationary or darn close to it. Now, the deep wing is not going to have a clear look at this, because if there's a foul here, it's the defensive back's right arm creating an arm bar over the receiver's right arm. Okay, so that he potentially can go up with only one arm. Now, if I'm the deep wing and I have trust in my back judge, and I would with Jason Smith, who is the back judge on this play, I'm going to trust that it's an inside arm bar. And if there's something there, Jason's going to get it. We do not want to guess in these plays. Please, please, pretty please do not guess if you do not see. Now, conversely, let's say this pattern comes from more at the numbers or maybe the hash mark, and the back judge's key is running a pattern, what we used to call a flag pattern. Now, the back judge has his back to the receiver and the defensive back. The back judge has got to trust that the deep wing is going to recognize the inside arm bar, if there is one, and is going to ring it up for the crew. This is a crew mechanics situation, and it's a really, really important one for us to talk about. And see the benefits of trusting one another and not guessing on plays. So this is the last clip that I have planned for tonight. Again, there may have been some clips that were sent that I didn't recognize because they didn't come to me in the form of a playlist. I'll try to find those. And if you did send me something, please develop a playlist and send it, and we'll use it next week. Okay, questions. We covered a number of different topics tonight. We even got into some mechanics for the short wings. We talked about some crew mechanics in terms of recognizing that neutral zone, making sure that touches are discernibly ahead of the line. We had some tip signals there. Referee did a good job on the block kick, all those sorts of things. So we covered a number of topics tonight. And we have to think of these things, of course, from a crew perspective. So let's say, for instance, on that punt, that let's say that the short wing isn't or recognizes that the kick was touched beyond the line and it's recovered by team A. Or wasn't. Let's do it in reverse, that the kick didn't make the line of scrimmage. A good mechanic would be for the deep wing on that side to come over and just say, all right, now let's just review and make sure that we're ending up where we need to be on this particular play. Where did team B touch the ball? A, did team B touch the ball? But assuming that they did, where did that occur? Are you certain it wasn't beyond the line? We may need to bring the opposite short wing in. We may need to bring the umpire in. But remember, conventional wisdom is always going to be better than an individual judgment made, particularly when we're not certain. We may need to piece some things together to come up with the proper ruling on the field. That's another important part of crew mechanics and trust within the family. Okay, so again, we covered a number of different topics. Hopefully there was some good stuff there that you can take back to your crew, irrespective of whether it involved the deep three or not. So any questions for the good of the order? We are just before 8 o'clock, so we're doing great. If you weren't on, if you joined the call right at 8 o'clock, we were having some preliminary discussion. And I'll just close with this. In high school football, you don't have the benefit of getting in a lot of preseason work on the field. You might get to a scrimmage. If you're lucky, you get to 2. But usually we don't have enough people out there to operate as full crews, and we end up dividing up, and it just really is not authentic from the standpoint of being a member of the deep three. So we have to rely on these early games. And a couple of people said that there were some things that they would have liked to have back and some things they want to fix moving forward. That's a part of the evolution of the season, and an evolution from a crew perspective. Your biggest improvement individually and as a crew should be from week 1 to week 2. Because as hard as we work during the off season, there are things that we did not have the opportunity or thought to prepare that happened in week 1. Okay, so they happened. So now we need to talk about them. We need to be prepared. So if that happens again, or something similar to it, that we're in a better posture, a better position than we were from week 1. And then we need to get incrementally better as we move along. And as the games get bigger, more important, the players and the coaches become more skillful. All those things are going to take place. So we have to get better during the season. So put the time in terms of your crew communication, things that happened during your first game, whether you're sharing video clips or you're talking about it at your JV game Wednesday or Thursday night this week, whatever it turns out to be, we need to start procuring what we're doing on the field so that our performance continues to get better.